Hello, so as promised, part 2 of the video, the UAE Social Studies Revised Framework. So just a friendly reminder to those parents who might have forgotten or those parents who are new to the UAE, we have about 3 years ago, the UAE initiated a program where all non-Arab speaking students, but basically all students living in the UAE, can understand the history of the UAE. This has absolutely nothing to do with religious studies at all, but learning a little bit more about the background of the UAE, how it was formed, its history, its trade, countries that it trades with, etc., its heritage, its culture that we're taking a look at. And so they implemented a curriculum. And as of September this year, they've revised the curriculum that they were having a look at, and they have shared this with schools. We are awaiting some teacher resources. All schools in the UAE are doing so. But in the meantime, they've given us the basic guidelines as to what our teachers need to cover during this. So the way that we do it at our school, it is only timetabled 1 hour a week as per the ministry requirements. So we have one UAE Social Studies lesson a week and one moral ed. In the past, they used to be seen as very separate and they had 2 separate forms of curriculum. But as of this year, in the new revised framework, you will see that in Standard 8, as they refer to it as, they've incorporated moral education for grades 1, for our grade 2s, for our grade 3s, 4s, and 5s. Now, if I take a look at our grade 2s, for example, you'll see every grade has a topic. So history is something that we need to look at, civics as their topic, the geography of the country, the sociology, economics, all through you can see, and with everyone in the grade, Standard 8 is always a touch on moral education. Now, the advantage of this is although they want to see it separately on our timetable for an hour, they have requested for schools to integrate this into their current curriculum. Now, that makes it super easy and far much more fun for us because we can link it to our units of inquiry. It might mean that we have to jumble these up a little bit, and if they've told us to start with, for example, history, we could start off with geography if we wish to, because we might be looking at something that's related to geography in our units of inquiry. They want schools to test this out for a year to see how best they can make authentic links in their curriculum. So what we will have are these variants. As for parents, please don't worry about these codes. These are just for the Ministry of Education, for teachers to be able to tick off on their separate sheet. And again, as much as we can combine these with other subjects, that is what they are looking for. They're asking us to at least incorporate as much as we can into the lessons. Now, this will be reported on our school reports as it is a core subject. So core subjects, for those of you that are new to the whole language as well, that would be your maths and your English. And then for us, it's UOI, but they don't see that yet as a core subject. They see it as science linked with UOI. So we have it as our UOI for PYP. I know it's a lot of acronyms here, but this is how they understand it, followed by the core subject of Arabic, whether you are taking that as A or B, and Islamic studies for those students who take Islamic studies. And then for everyone, for grades 1 through to 5, we have added in UAE Social Studies and Moral Ed. Now, what we sometimes like to do is closer towards the end of November, we sometimes put a pause on our current unit of inquiry, and we do a lot of UAE Social Studies because it's a rich time in the UAE's history when it is towards the end of November, when we have the UAE National Day celebrations, we have Commemoration Day, we have the establishment of the UAE, we have the UAE Flag Day. So we try and have these events and link as much as we can to these events so that the students can see why we are doing it, that it's not just a learning piece of information, but why are we doing it? So you will see on your first learning snapshots that you will be getting towards the end of October, to let you know how your child is doing, you will see UAE Social Studies and Moral Education. And for that, there will be a grading between 1 and 7. Ideally, with this being the first time that we're taking a look at it, because it's a new curriculum framework, your child should be wanting to hit between a 4, 5, or 6 for it. All right, so having a look at that, this is the document that I'm sharing with you just so that you can have an idea of what it is when we refer to UAE Social Studies and Moral Education. What is it that we are taking a look at? And again, teachers can plot this in at any time of the year. In fact, some of them will revisit some of the topics because our units of inquiry are transdisciplinary. Again, another big word, but it means it doesn't just happen in one subject. It can happen in many subjects if they can manage to find an authentic link with it all. So I hope you have found this bit of information informative, and as soon as we receive any updates from the Ministry of Education, we will let you know.